What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Palazzo Podcast. 2Ls, 2Zs. Mike Virginia here with a big Gentle Ben and Robbie Baseball. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We are doing the Big Three show, and today's teams are the Yankees, the Royals, and the Athletics. Ben, Robbie, how you guys doing this evening?
Good.
Better
we get
when
to
we're
talk
through the Royals.
Yeah, I was saying we get to talk about one really good system tonight.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't
with
wait.
That.
I can't wait to see which one it is.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you which one it's definitely not.
There you go.
Yeah.
Pretty sure we're talking about the 30th rank system tonight. Just saying.
For those of you
That's
guys
fair.
tuning in, appreciate you guys jumping in and watching today. You guys know the deal. If you guys haven't already or you're new here, make sure that you like and subscribe to the Palazzo YouTube channel. Our quest to 1,000 is ongoing. Hopefully we get there by season's end. So we really appreciate it. Leave us 5-star reviews on all the podcast platforms. And then make sure you're following us on Twitter, aka X. So without further ado, what team do we want to start with, guys? We want to start with the Royals here?
Yeah, let's rip the Band-Aid off. So just get her done.
All righty. So we'll go with the Royals first here, and we're going to talk about the top 3 prospects within the Royals system. Ben, we'll start with you, my friend. Who are your top 3 in the Royals farm?
Oh boy, that's top 3 is putting it very lightly. So I have Frank Mazzucato. I have a left-handed pitcher. I have Caden Wallace, who I think is probably going to end up a first baseman, but for now is a third baseman. And then Mason Barnett. So those are my 3, which this could be a fun night where Robbie and I don't agree with anybody on this team. But
No, we're not too far off. Sorry, I'm just going on the X and doing the old repost, and I'm stating I remember when I loved the Royals because once upon a time I loved them so much that I got like a custom Royals hat. And once they'd previously beaten my Blue Jays back when I was a fan of them. But they had a really cool draft. I think it was 18 when they were like, let's get college pitchers and then let's get them moving quickly. Singer and company, Singer, Lynch, Cowher, who for some reason now everyone's like, oh, Jackson Cowher's moved this offseason. He must be valuable. Let's scoop him up. But it was more like he's doing the dance of, is he going to go to KBO next year versus the impact pitcher. And since then, I haven't been too excited with Royals, and it shows with my top 3 because the first guy is a Rule 5 pick, and that's real sad. Matt Sauer. I just feel like I'm picking a guy again. Like my note on him starts. This is sad. It's not right that Sauer's the top guy, but he's got the stuff that could be bullpen acceptable in 2024 and maybe finds a way into 80 innings and then fight for a rotation spot in 2025. This is the comparable, I would say, is Garrett Whitlock to fantasy guys out there. We didn't care too much about Garrett Whitlock the Rule 5 year, but we started to get interested in season. And then we got a little bit of hype the following year. Now he's older than Whitlock was, like a year older at that time, but we're going to let that go. And then I've got Frankie Matzo as well. He's who we're really hoping on, and that's not ideal. Beyond that, I am not giving up on Gavin Cross, who finished the year at AA. But I mean, the debut was so good. The college career was so good. He was so good in high school. I don't think he's this bad. I don't think he's 203, 298, 378. That was the line last year. But he can play center field. I think even in Kansas City, he can play center field. He can hit for power. I guess he changed his swing a bit to make it a little longer. So again, get a proper hitting coach with him in spring training, shorten it up a little bit, do that whole 2-strike approach, and we could see a lot of things go well for him. I didn't check his BABIP because I don't care, but a lefty is someone I'm interested in who can play center field. And we've seen KC in the past. I know new regime, but we've seen them before value defense in the ballpark, and Cross might be able to kind of be promoted despite lower numbers and then get an opportunity to bring himself up later on. But again, dynasty buy low right now for him for sure.
And who knows how long they're in that ballpark. That's the other thing. That's what really makes it tough.
Are they moving to Vegas also?
Well, no. They're actually looking to move more in city, Kansas City. rather than, I don't know if you've ever been to Kaufman, it's kind of out on the outskirts and you get out of town a little bit in order to get there, which, but it's it shares a parking lot with the Chiefs Stadium. It's really a nice, frankly, I think it's a nice facility. And Kaufman, though it may be in the top 5 as far as oldest stadiums in the majors now, because everybody else has built a new one, except, the Cubs and the Red Sox, for lots of reasons. But Kaufman, to me, is still one of the most gorgeous stadiums inside it when you go in. I mean, there's a waterfall in center field. There's greenery. The seats aren't crazy, like, hey, this was built a long time ago when people were only this wide, so a fat man can sit in them. That I appreciate that part. So no, but that also leads into, it makes it tough to really know what you're getting with these pitchers, and especially with a hitter that might have borderline power. A guy like Caden Wallace, to me, is a guy who, if Caden Wallace is a Rockies prospect, this is a guy I'm all over, because he is going to pound doubles in Coors Field. I think he would pound doubles in Kaufman. My problem is, if they move somewhere else, I don't know that he has a whole lot of over fence power, and you could have a whole lot of stuff that just could look really, really rough. And so it's hard to get on board with some of these guys just because you don't know what that future looks like too.
Well, I mean, even ballpark aside, it's just depressing to look at the
guys.
Oh
yeah.
Like, well, you don't see anyone who you're like, I mean, the next 3 I dug deep for it, but it's just like, you have some pretty obvious MLBers, and then the Royals seem to have like some long shot pitchers and some long shot outfielders and some bench type infielders. You're not seeing like, this guy's a shortstop who like has a bat, which is terrible, and shame on them.
Well, to your guys' point about the stadium with the waterfall and the greenery and being a nice stadium, they have to do something to attract fans because their product sucks. So hopefully that new stadium, if they do move, has something similar to that. So, all right, well, cool. Go ahead, Ben.
I was just going to say, the one guy on mine that I'd really like to highlight, and it very well might be on your next big 3, Robbie, but Mason Barnett, to me, is that type of guy who I highlight him a lot on this, but very, very high floor sort of guy. 5 pitches that he can maneuver, and none of them really is a plus pitch, but they're all average, and he has above average control. That's the making of a guy who works really well in the back of a rotation. Scary part is, that's a top 3 for this system to me right now. That's, I mean, a guy who looks like he could be a number 4, but probably is a number 5, is their, 3rd guy on my list here. So yeah, that's.
Well, and only 32 innings for him, which is why I kind of pushed him back. 32 innings, sorry, a AA is what I meant to say. That's my entire sentence. But 43 Ks, and you never ignore that. And I always do the prospect, if the whip is at or under 1.25, I'm interested. If it's over, why? And then you can look at, their pitch selection. And I used to crap on the Royals, saying that, I know everybody likes Sal Perez, but when he had his big dinger year, that was when those pitchers were all coming up that I was so excited with. And I genuinely felt like he was not the right guy to be receiving them because of the year he was having. And I thought, like, I know he gets all this press for being, good with rotation and this and that, but obviously it's veteran laden, right? Certain catchers can catch anybody, make anybody better, steal strikes, yada, yada. But other pitchers need the right catcher in right scenarios. We've seen individuals. Darvish has had a guy in previous years. I know knuckleballer is different, but other guys caught, in a rotation, you'd have one catcher catch 2, the other would catch 3. And that's kind of how the harmony went. And then the bullpen is, up for everybody to do. But I didn't think he was the right guy. Perez was the right guy at the time. And now all those guys, it was Singer. We've seen Asa Lacy fall off a flipping cliff, but he was never part of that. But he was potentially the 6th guy in their 5-man thing, because it was Singer,
Bubic,
Lynch, Bubic, thank you, Cower, and there was another which oh my goodness, he was a Rule 5 guy too. Keller, Brad Keller was the other one who I was like, hey, there's some hope there. And all of that, like Singer aside, like last year he was demoted to start the year, came up and then I think he had 10 Ks in 5-inning debut, something like that. And that was the season high for Ks. He's good. But he's like at his ceiling. I don't know if he needs a better catcher. MJ Melendez has come up and then, he's not a catcher anymore. One of the reasons why it's really difficult in fantasy for those things. But anyway, that's enough talk of like the past. What's the future?
So
that's all we really care about.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the next big three for you guys for Kansas City?
So I guess for me, going on future, I'll do two really good future ones and then one depressing, the fact that I had to have them on here. But the guy who actually is rated as the number one prospect by Baseball America in this system is Blake Mitchell. I will tell you right now.
I refuse to put him on.
Which I respect that because honest to goodness, I think he is an elite defensive catcher that I don't know if he'll ever hit. And it reminds me a lot of Will Banfield. I don't know if you guys remember him when he came out the Marlins drafted him. When he came out, there were people talking him all the way up into the top 10 because his catching defense was elite. Okay. High school catching defense is about the worst thing you can ever draft for in the major league draft. And not only did the Royals draft that, but they gave him almost $5 million as the 8th pick or something like that, 8th or 9th pick. Like I said, I think the defense is there. He's got one of the best catch and throw deliveries I've seen, which could be very, very good as we move into automated balls and strikes, and old school skills like throwing base runners out become way more valuable than a frame. But he's still got to hit. And right now, I don't see that. I don't see it right now. My second next big three guy is Yandel Ricardo, who was just signed this year from Cuba. And I have heard
from where? Sorry,
from Cuba.
Interesting.
Cuba. You also have to understand, in this area, Tony Oliva comes to visit us every so often, and that's how Tony always says Cuba is Cuba. So he married a woman from this area, so he comes visits. Yeah. Anyway, Ricardo. There are people that said if he would not have been Cuban, he would have been the guy getting the most money this last January, because they didn't see him. He slipped under radars, and the Royals just happened to have really not made any commitments. And so they're going, oh, hey, we've got a couple $1 million we can throw at this guy. And type of guy who not a guy who likely has anything that sticks out as, holy crap, that's amazing, but does everything well. And he's a switch hitter. And so a switch hitter at shortstop with enough potential to stick there. Okay, I'll take that. I'll buy it. And then finally, my last one is a reliever. But
which one?
I think he has there you go. Has the potential to be a really fun reliever for fantasy owners who like to stock up on middle relief guys that could potentially be a closer. And that's John McMillan. The fastball and slider there is absolutely ridiculous. I want to say last year that he had, for anyone who had more than 50 innings pitched in the minors, he had the highest strikeout rate. It was something like, it was almost 50%, and it was over 50% until mid-August before it finally dropped down. It was in the mid 40s somewhere, but just a ridiculous talent as far as a fastball that can easily get up to triple digits and just has a wicked slider. So that's a guy, he's almost certainly going to be in the major league bullpen at some point this year, if not on opening day, and probably will give you a lot of strikeouts as a fantasy guy. But then again, that's a guy that I'd never talk about in the Dodgers system. Like, this guy is like one of the top 6 that I want to talk about right now, because he's one of the few that you might get some value out of as a fantasy owner.
I am listening. I'm trying to find where he went in a most recent 30-team points league draft that we just wrapped up. He was a free agent. Man who I won't mention is the pegged closer right now for them, James MacArthur with the Royals, who went in the 3rd round. So he was top 70 of that draft. And I thought for sure that McMillan was going to slide big time. And I did not take him. And then he went, God damn it, I got to find him. I wish there was a faster way to find exactly where he went. I've got to go through 300 names here. But he went, I'm thinking it was round 7. So in the 210s area. Doesn't matter. I can't find him, but he went there, and I thought he'd slide further. And then I looked, I'm like, well, it was past, whatever, even the top 150. If you think there's a guy with legit talent who can help, this is a points league too. So you got to go get that guy. But I did draft a Royal in that one. I think it was him. Because when these drafts start, I start to immediately to throw my cues out the window. And who did I draft very late in that? I drafted Will Klein, who I'm not even going to mention as one of my top 6s, but he was added to their 40-man. He's a 23-year-old guy, 64 and a third innings last year, 93 Ks, but 64 and a third innings, 39 walks. So I'm dreaming late on Will Klein, and he was picked 294th in that draft. So the 3 guys that I have, Javier Vaz, the lefty 2-baseman, left fielder, 23-year-old, speed contact player. He's going to be Stephen Kwan like, because he's got elite contact skills. But what he doesn't have is the ability to hit the ding dongs. And then the last guy, I'm going to skip over the next one because he's the one who I think has the most promise. The last guy is somebody who had a horrible year, very much like Gavin Cross. Luca Tresh, catcher. He's now going to be playing this year at 25. I haven't even seen him on a top 50 prospect list, but he was liked in 2022. 259 BABIP. I'm going to say that hurt him. I know that's not 200 BABIP, but it's also not 310, which can really help to bolster your numbers at a low level. He's going to spring training this year. I think he might get pushed to AAA depending on what they do with depth and, non-roster invitees and all that fun crap. He was once upon a time a sleeper, 2022. I think he could get back to that. He was a 2021 17th round pick. So, and then the last guy,
can I guess,
fellas? Yeah.
Tyler Gentry.
Yes. Nope. I'm going to spell out his line and you tell me if you like him. Okay. I've got a 6 foot 180 righty who is 18 years old. All right. And he had a 344 batting average, a 440 OBP, and a 615 slugging, 8 ding dongs in 122 at bats. Wouldn't you like that? He also stole 6 bases. Yeah, sure. He was caught 4 times, but he's crafty. The only issue with my man, Ramon Ramirez, is he's a goddamn catcher. And if it wasn't for that, I would be excited for him. He's a former J2 guy who did very well, as I mentioned, in the DSL. I just don't know what they're going to do with him from there, but this is the one guy who I was like, everything was really good about him last year. Don't lose all hope, Royals. You might have a catcher in 6 years. That's just where we are with these guys.
I honestly thought when you started reading things off, age, everything, I thought you were going with Hero Wyatt. And
oh, no.
I'm a fan of him. He ended up hurting himself in his first attempt to pitch in the Arizona Complex League. 6'1", 185, and was 19. He was a high school draftee last year. But I really like his overall stuff.
Yeah, they complained about the draft a little bit with KC because they could have taken Teal instead. They took a high school guy, but they said, well, it was because they were trying to do this 1-2 punch. But I just want to see some pro time, like some legit pro time before I go telling anybody, go get him. But like with Ramirez, at least there's some DSL. There's the assumption he'll be over this year to complex. And depending on how he does, if he is over for late spring training, maybe they'll see their way to skip him. Skip complex or make it a short trip to complex. But the high school pitchers also scare me. Zeben was a guy with Cleveland that we didn't talk about when we went through it because he was hurt last year. He's kind of fallen off, but he was one of those sleeper types, not a high drafted guy, but he was paid. I forget where he was. He was a real overslot guy. I just get so damn scared with the high school guys, and I feel like I've talked so much about them with these, like within the top three, next three of this, that like my failure rate's going to be so high, so high with these guys.
Well, while we're on the subject of the guy that I brought up, really quickly, what are your all's thoughts on Gentry in this system? Because I felt like he put together a pretty solid minor league season last year, with a blend of power and speed.
To me, he's one of those guys that really profiles as a very good fourth outfielder or a third outfielder that you're kind of like, maybe I don't want to start him if once I get a better option. So I think he's kind of in that spot right there.
Yeah, he honestly is just kind of a tough sell to make like an impact. Not that I feel like, when you talk about relievers, they have to be a closer unless you're in a holds league, and then we get into like the niche of niches when we do that. But yeah, like Gentry was somebody who in 2020 and 2021 and 2022 was looking good, but there was never the big jump because the Royals are weird like that, where there wasn't like a massive test that they gave him. Yep. He did go to the fall league, but he did not do well in the fall league. And I think that's where, for me, this was 2022. This is where he like kind of dipped off for me. And that's when a guy like Elijah Dunham would have taken over. And then I watched Dunham more than I watched Gentry last year. And Dunham's with the Yankees. So I guess maybe I tipped my hat, or maybe I didn't. But he's somebody who I watched a little more, and then Gentry kind of went to the wayside. Plus, he's the type of Gentry as well, is the type of guy who dynasty owners are not willing to trade because he had a full season at AAA. So everybody thinks that he is knocking on KC's door. But I don't know. Maybe he is a good like sleeper pick, and I'll regret this in a year. He hasn't done anything to take away from his ability, but I just feel like he, like Ben said, he's a bench MLBer, not a starting MLBer. Got it. And KC doesn't like to take chances either. That's the other thing. They don't like to give a spot to anyone that's not Bobby Witt,
Which, that's ridiculous to me. But anyway,
All right, so who do we want to talk about next? Do you guys want to dive into New York? Do you guys want to talk about Oakland, or do you want to save the best for last and save the Yankees for the last, or do you guys want to where do you guys want to pivot to?
Robbie, you get to go first, so you tell me who you're going for.
Well, I mean, as a life motto of F the Yankees, let's go the Yankees. F them. They don't need to be last. Let's do it next.
I love that. I second that.
So,
all right.
So
I'm just
first three.
Yep.
I'm just keeping those timestamps for Govia. That's my homework over here.
Oh yeah.
So I now got to keep Dad happy, So my top three, I've got Chase Hampton, I've got Jason Dominguez, and Spencer Jones. I'll dive into each later. But since we're talking Yankees, all right, I need something to help the medicine go down. I'm talking about it.
And really, I think Dominguez and Jones are probably on everybody's three. And then it's just a matter of what do you like most out of their next guys. And for me, I took a future guy. I took a guy that kind of fits some of Robbie's fun things. He's a 6'7" lefty. And his name is Henry Lalane, which it looks like Lalane, but he is not related to Jack. His name is Lalane. And he's got family that played collegiate sports, but he happened to be like family that lived in the Dominican too, so he could be born in New York and then go back and sign as a Dominican, which I always think that's a little bit interesting. Yeah. But holy crap, does he avoid walks? That's the thing that like he needs another breaking pitch. His slider is ridiculous, but it's a plus changeup, it's a plus fastball, it's a plus and maybe even double plus slider. but he doesn't shape those any differently. If you've seen his fastball, you've seen his fastball. He's not going to give you one with a little different wiggle. But I mean, he just pounds the zone. I guess I don't have his numbers up right in front of me, but at one point it was like he was like 30-1 walk or strikeout to walk ratio at one point. It was just absolutely ridiculous. So absolutely pounds the zone, and it's with really good stuff. So that's Henry Lalane. So
there you go. That's the name of the show today. Ben, since we're on this, and obviously I think that Jason Dominguez, I think, is out on everybody's list, but your top three for the Yankees, are you in agreement with Robbie in terms of who your top three is between Dominguez, Jones, and Hampton?
No, I have Lalane instead of Hampton, but otherwise Dominguez and Jones. I think that those are pretty well consistent, because I mean, there's a lot to worry about, frankly, with Spencer Jones, but he's also so freaking athletically talented that it's hard not to have him in this spot.
Yeah, there certainly is no for sure thing with a 6'6" guy. The only good thing is that there's probably still some coaches who are around to help Judge out. And Judge did the I'm at this level for the first time, I struggle. I repeat the level, I dominate, and then promotion. And he did that 3 times, I think, including in the MLB. So it's great to dream on the ability of Jones to develop if he has an issue, because there's going to be some kind of big ass strike zone that he's got to be able to cover with that frame. But the rest is the rest is there. Like as for Lalane, in 2 drafts that one's currently going on, and one was a prospect draft that finished Sunday night before the Super Bowl. He went 64th in a prospects only draft, and he went 169 in a universal draft, where he previously, in this draft, we also had like MLB veterans that were out of contract, and then you just draft as you go. So I would say that would have still put him right around the 100 mark for prospects. He dropped quite a bit. So definitely not everyone knows about him in your leagues. He's only rostered in 3 of the 6 dynasty leagues that I play on Fantrax. I'm looking, he's on the board, but for me, Hampton's been higher up. I drafted him 23rd in one of the leagues. He went 24th in another one. And, the 24th guy has won this same league 3 years in a row. So he knows what he's doing drafting, but he's a spin rate guy. Hey, everybody likes spin rate guys. Remember Trevor Bauer? Anyway, fastball, curve, slider are all good. If he gets a changeup, I can tie this into Bauer. If he gets a changeup, he could choke out his competition. We do want to see more time.
And we just lost the female audience. All right.
What? I mean, anyway.
Of course, looking at us doesn't really help that, but let's just.
Right. Yeah. You think that we're here for this? No. But Hampton needs more time in the upper minors. He's only got a few, whatever it is, 30-ish innings, something like that in AA. We need to see a lot of AA time and then perhaps some AAA time to really see what his pitch mix can do, because we know the changeup gets more and more important the higher up you go. And when you're in high school and you look amazing, it's probably because you're blowing it by everybody, which you can do at complex and you can do in low A, and you can probably get away with it in high A. But if you're not developing a changeup, you're going to need to, or you're going to get smoked when you get to the higher levels. Hampton was a college guy drafted 6th round of 2022, but he still needs to show that changeup can keep everyone guessing what's coming. Otherwise, they're just going to start to look for arm angles. And as the coaches get better, he could have a little bit of trouble. I'm not saying he's a bust. I know we kind of joked about it on the previous podcast on that, but I think Hampton's very good. I just want to see the higher level competition and those ratios continue, because we see a lot of guys hit the next level and then they're done. They just, they missed. That was their area. And if they're not coached, or if they don't have a great catcher, or whatever the case is, trouble's a brewing.
So Robbie, I want to bring this up just because Hampton has a cutter that I think is probably a hair above average. It's probably, I mean, you want to call it a 52.5. That's, on the scouting scale. That's about what it is. I mean, it's not really a true above average, but it's better than most that you'll see as far as average ones are concerned. To me, a guy that can use a fastball variant, like a cutter, like a splitter, maybe that's not a true changeup
Mhm.
for them, but if they can really learn to locate that,
Right, but that's the pitch.
that can be your if you've got a fastball variant that you use well, you might be able to ignore the changeup and have it as kind of a show me it's there, but I use it 1% of the time sort of thing. His cutter could be that. It's just not there yet. I'm just kind of curious what you think about that with like fastball variants, like you said, like a splitter, like a
Yeah, we've talked before about
cutter.
how you don't like when somebody says, "Oh, they can only throw, fastball, slider," but like you said, there's different versions of a fastball. And if that's the case, what I was kind of hoping with him was that the curveball would be a little more devastating. But he's got it's the 70s curve, which can always be dangerous if they're waiting on it. And then it's the 80s slider. So again, that's where having the changeup or the cutter is going to be very important to it.
Mhm.
I want to see more pro time with him, and I really need to actually like dive into the arm angle and what are we seeing
Mhm.
when he's throwing the various pitches, because that's what the better hitters are going to pick up on, depending on what he's doing, any potential tell, all that kind of stuff. If he hides it really well, he's going to be fine. But it's the same deal that we see with a lot of other guys where a coach is telling somebody, this is the pitch you're looking for, and there's another one you can hit. You don't want to find that. You want Hampton to be fastball early to get you strike one, and then be able to throw anything that's not another fastball, so that you are guessing on pitches 3 and 4, which could potentially both be out pitches for him. And I haven't watched enough of him to say I truly believe. There are high schoolers who have never seen a Yankees World Series win. You just hate to see it, Jared. Love it. There are
I just thought, yeah.
grown men. There are grown men who have never seen the Blue Jays win.
Well,
1993,
yeah.
baby. 93. It's up on the wall.
So-
Actually, that's 92 on the wall there. That pennant. But anyway, that's my thing with Hampton is I just want to see more. I do. Yeah, I appreciate the idea of the cutter. It doesn't seem like it's been stated like you said about it being a dominant pitch. It's just a matter of how well he can command it. And
Yep.
now that people have seen him, it's the same thing when you get to the MLB level. You come in, you do what you do, and people react. Then people understand how to approach you. You then need to react to that. Maybe we need to see what
Mhm.
Hampton's like from opening day to the end of May. And then if there's a promotion because he's doing well, I'll be very excited with my shares that I've picked up of him.
Yeah.
Do you think that he needs to add a couple more MPHs to the fastball? He's a low to mid 90s guy, right? I mean, do you think that will aid him in?
I don't know. I've
Yeah.
never sat in the box with a guy throwing 90 and a guy throwing 95. So
Right.
I can't say how devastating that's going to be. Like they'll time it eventually, no matter what it is. I feel like it has a lot to do with that 80s and that changeup really keeping Marco Estrada could be successful, right? There are guys who just don't
Yep.
need that high velo, and Hampton's got enough in the arsenal if he uses it, right? Like if he doesn't end up
Right.
with 5% pitches, then it could be interesting. But if he is heavily relying on it, as soon as we start to see hard contact against, that's when any of the pitchers, right? That's when you back off. Like if you're
Mhm.
throwing heat, you're going to get hit hard. If you're not throwing the upper 90s and you're getting hit hard, then it can be a bit of a concern in the minors, because at the pro level, they'll do that thing with the angle that launches, and then you're going to be in trouble.
Right. All right, cool. Well, let's
Okay.
dive into the next three here with the Yankees.
Mhm.
Ben, we'll start with you. Who do you got?
So I was enjoying this conversation. Hampton is on my next three for sure. Then I have Roderick Arias, and I had somebody different before I watched a little video today. So I was going to get into discussing Robbie's favorite position, but instead I watched some video on George Lombard, and holy crap, I really, really, really like what I saw there. I think the Yankees might have gotten another Volpe type of player where he goes at the back of the first and ends up becoming a guy who might be as talented as anybody else in that draft class.
We shared Hampton as my top three. Arias, I've got him, and then I've got Kiner Delgado, and I've got Will Warren as my other. So we do have some variance on the back end. Warren is next man up, I think, SP 6-7 with the Yankees right now. Fastball, slider, changeup, curve. And I think he could be up if something weird happens. Like, remember last year how the Yankees all of a sudden had like odd guys starting who like no dynasty guys had ever thought of. Redraft guys were sleeping on.
That are all sitting in, and they're all with the Padres now.
Right. That's exactly right. Everyone that got a little, I call it a tea sandwich because I don't like the idea of a cup of coffee. Everyone that had a tea sandwich in the pros last year, they just shipped them all to San Diego.
Yep.
But Will Warren, he didn't have that chance, and his 3.61 ERA and 110 Ks once he was promoted to AAA last year looked great. 99 innings pitched, and he had those numbers. And that's why I said I feel like he's next man up if there's an injury, which with an older pitching staff, you never know what they're going to do. Warren's going to get time. I'm sure he'll have a start before the end of May. It's just a matter of how good is he. 2021 8th round pick. Arias, I quite like Arias. I mean, he was the big J2 guy a few years ago. I remember drafting him 2nd round in one of the points leagues that I just mentioned. And it was when I made that pick that somebody in the group chat was like, oh, we can draft those guys. And that was after we didn't have, it was the J2 and then became the J15. And I was like, yeah, man, like anyone that's there. And that was the same year as Norgvera was, I think, the best pitcher in that class. And Yoenis, no, what was the Cespedes? Was it Yoenis? No.
Uelis.
Yeah. Or yeah, there's a K in it. But anyway, that guy, he was one of the ones who was also possibly going to be a stud in that. And Arias is the one so far that is doing nice things. That was on the big end of the signing. And he's coming along. He's not amazing in any one category, but he's just playing well. And then Delgado for me is total flyer. I think he was 100K he signed for, killed the DSL, hit well in complex. He's elite OBP. He can play shortstop. He's going to take a ton of walks. He can steal bases. And the two things that I read about him is average speed and slightly above average. So let's say he is 0.25 above average for speed, but more than anything, he's smart and he's got baseball instincts. So he'll still be able to do all the good things like steal bases, like notice somebody's not paying attention here or there and move around because he has baseball intelligence. He's not going to end innings when he's up. He's going to be able to get that man over. He'll do all those good things. I have him in several spots, and I think he's going to keep rising up ranks. But again, there's like the Oswaldo Peraza, there's the Volpes, there's the oh my gosh, there were 3 dudes that were all Yankee potential middle infielders, and then they've dispersed except for Volpe. That's something that the Yankees are really good at. They're good at hyping players. Some of them get traded out and then don't do anything. Some of them become MLBers, but they're not doing it with Delgado because he's not there yet. And I think by the time that happens, he will be very good. So it's not going to be something we fear, but I know they have traded off with the Rangers trade. Who was it that they traded? What's his nuts that took off the second half of this year with them? Oh my goodness.
Oh, Duran,
thank you.
Yes.
They traded him and people were like, oh, he looked good, but then he was really bad. No. Like he just wasn't finished when, he was traded at a peak and then adjusted and had some issues. I feel like Arias and Delgado are below that threshold. They're going to be legitimate prospects by the time they hit, the AA market. We'll know what they really are or not. And I think for both those guys, they could rise up together. But if I'm picking between the two, I think Delgado is a cheaper buy. And I think he possibly, because of the baseball smarts, has the ability to be more consistent. Arias, let's say he's got a higher ceiling just for fun.
Yep. Where do these guys fall for Arias and Lombard too, with Volpe being in New York now and for the foreseeable future, being as he was, we're probably talking about him this time last year.
Right.
Where do these guys fit? Are they versatile in playing the second base or another position?
I think Delgado probably is more second than short. He's been playing short so far because he's, again, like Robbie said, that baseball smarts at that level allows him to be in position to play shortstop.
Yeah.
But once you get up the chain and you're dealing with guys who are hitting the ball consistently 100 plus off the bat, you got to have quick instincts. You got to have that arm to be able to throw out the guy who's got elite run tools, all those things, because that guy you see one of in every lineup at A ball or in the complex, there are 9 of those guys in the lineup every single day that you're trying to throw out as they run down the line, or trying to catch their heater off of the bat and things like that. So it makes shortstop a little more difficult. I think he's probably a second baseman. Lombard is a guy who I could see him transitioning to being a really good center field type. He's a hell of an athlete, and he does have a huge arm. But I wonder if he's also 6'3", and so kind of has that profile that they might just slide him over to third. And right now, third is kind of an empty hole in that system. So I could see that working. And so he might be the rare third baseman that steals you 20 and hits you 25, 30 in the end. But yeah, and Arias right now is probably the quote unquote guy as far as sticking it short of those. He's the one that's going to be interesting because he is, I mean, most places I've seen him listed as a plus fielder, and that arm is freaking amazing. So that's going to be what's interesting with him down the road.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see if I know Delgado's a switch hitter. Is Arias a switch hitter?
Arias,
I don't have that in my notes.
He's a switch. Yep. He's a switch hitter.
Also. So both. Yeah.
Yep.
So they're very clone like. But yeah, Delgado I look at as almost a Devin Travis type for anyone who wants to remember a little bit of a smart player who through injuries wasn't able to do it. Devin Travis was not highly thought of when the Tigers had a decimated system. I forget what the trade was with Toronto. Travis came over and people were like, oh, that's interesting. He played at AA last year. And then when spring training started, that I believe was when I had a lot of free time in the middle afternoons and I could listen to all the spring training games. So I think I was definitely working somewhere. I don't know if it was my own restaurant where in the afternoon I just blasted Blue Jay spring training games so I could just listen to it. But I kept hearing about like how intelligent of a player he was and how he's in the right position and how, he's vying for, an opening day spot. And I was like, what? No, why would this guy? But anyway, that might be a Delgado thing. Well, like you said, Ben, he switches to second because that's where he fits best. But at the same time, Volpe, for all the hype of prospect status that he got to, he had a quietly okay season, but loudly disappointing for the fantasy owners out there. So he's got to have one of those prove it years. And it might be CJ Abrams take, to year 2 to get it right. But that's what I think a lot of people are waiting on. And if he doesn't do that, not that like Arias is right there to take it or Delgado, those guys are not in competition in the next 2 years. But it does mean that they might just wait, like Torres, where everyone's like Torres is going to be this great, amazing guy. And then it was like, Ben, or sorry, not Ben, Mike, you might have nightmares about the 8 dingers that he hit in Baltimore. And that was the reason why the numbers look so good, right? They talked about a horrible Baltimore team and him having an amazing few games there. So,
and that porch was a lot closer in left field.
That's right.
Before they moved it back. So,
well, they had to find a way to make Baltimore relevant. Right.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
So the other guy that in this system, we're talking up the middle. I mean, we all know DJ LeMahieu is old. But the guy to me that looks a lot like LeMahieu did coming up is someone they traded away Trey Sweeney and got Orbit Vivas. I think he looks a lot like a young LeMahieu when I watch him. He's just I've seen grades of sub 50 on his hit tool. I doesn't surprise me. He doesn't put a lot of oomph into the ball. And LeMahieu never really did either. He just got into Colorado and he made enough contact all over the place to where he ended up with a 450 slugging percentage because he had 40 doubles, and won a batting title. And then he comes to New York and he can pull the crap out of about 15, 20 a year. And so it looks like, hey, this guy's got power. Well, that or else he's, hitting balls into a little league, right field porch. But, that's a little different situation. But I think Vivas could do that. And he's kind of one of those guys. He's a second. He's not going to kill you at short, but probably is best at second. But defense just isn't what he does well. It's just he's one of those, like you were saying, like he's a smart guy. He gets on base a lot. He works counts really well. That's one thing I really appreciate watching him, is he makes a guy throw him everything he has. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see, because I believe is trying to remember, he is on the 40 man. I think that's
part
why
of the trade had to be made.
Part of why he got traded is he was on the 40 man and the Dodgers needed the space. And so they got Sweeney instead, who wasn't yet needed to be added. So he's going to be an interesting guy to see what he does this year. Cause like I said, I don't know if he comes north with the big league club, but he could certainly factor into, let's say, 250 plate appearances this year pretty easily.
Yeah. That'd be a big chunk of time.
Well, I mean, look at what they got sitting around second base. And then, like I said, they got LeMahieu right now penciled in at first base. I'm sorry, but what the first base or third?
They're putting Glaber at second.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, he could switch in for LeMahieu for a lot of whatever LeMahieu is providing you.
Yeah.
But I could see him popping up quite a bit. And like I said, you never know as far as injury. Maybe Volpe shows that he's really just not a shortstop, and then they're going to wish that they had someone defensively that could take that, but that's a whole nother discussion. But
I'm going to speak for Robbie here and say, as fellow members of the AL East, the O's and the Blue Jays, I think we've spent more than enough time on this Yankees team. What did you say in the beginning before we started the Yankees segment, Robbie? I can't remember.
Just like, they don't deserve to be last, so we should just get through with them quickly.
I believe it was after the Yankees. I think that was
that part. Yes, after the Yankees. Okay. Yeah, that one.
No, I do want to say though that this is, the Yankees are really good at hyping their guys. That said, this is legit a very deep system. There's a lot of guys you get into the 25, the 30 guy, and you're like, yeah, that guy, I could see that guy becoming a solid major leaguer, or even there's he's in complex, and this is a guy that I legit think has the upside of being something big, but there's such a big difference between his upside and his downside. I see why he's still at 25, 30 or wherever in the system. So
it's always hitters though. The Yankees have struggled forever in a day. Phil Hughes as the shining example, Luis Severino as, do you really want to count on that? For developing pitchers who have stuck around. There's always a guy that can, be the example to contradict it, but not the elite, right? That's why they sign the elite guys, because they're not in a position where they've been drafting them. And we didn't get into, we got into 2, but we didn't get into a conversation about 5 or 6 potential starters. I guess Warren, we got into 3, but again, Warren's not ceiling, he's floor based. We're not hyping up. I've got an off-topic question from this, but it's real quick for Ben here. So I'm up in 3 picks in a dynasty league draft, and this is the universal one. I could take Ignacio Alvarez. I could take Schwellenbach. I could take Cleveland's Alex Clemmie, who I personally like, which is why I'm asking you, because I feel
I'm a big fan. Yeah.
Or I could take is it Gino Grover from Arizona.
Jeez. Those are that's a good grouping.
And this is in the 9th round, but that's because it's a universal draft. So a lot of teams are going heavy on MLBers, and I have just been going around getting my guys that I wanted. Everyone I've missed out on in other drafts, I've been taking. So in this one, I would like, my pitching's really good. My minors pitching is really good, but I love to load up on pitching because everyone else seems to punt it. And then when they need it, they come a knocking. So I'm just curious, if you were to take this, what player do you feel is the most dynasty friendly? Clemmie, Schwellenbach, Matthews, Alvarez, Grover.
So if you want to get into full dynasty, what they could be, I would probably actually go Grover simply because of where he's at. The guy who's playing third in Arizona, and I like the hit tool. But if I'm ranking those prospects just based on overall, no consideration. Yeah, no consideration to their organization, things like that. It's Nacho. and I think
Okay.
he's that guy. Where, like I said, when we talked about on the Braves, he's that guy that right now looks like he's a for sure, like, does everything well, nothing extremely well, but he also has the upside that he could turn something into an extremely well. You know,
Okay.
he's one of those guys. He's going to hit for average. He's going to give you a little power. He's going to give you a little speed, but he could turn, he's pretty darn athletic. I could see him stealing 20 plus, but he has got some legit raw. And so if he wanted to turn that on in game, he might sacrifice some batting average and you might have a 30 homer guy, which that's a hell of a fun deal. So,
okay. I had Grover 6, Alvarez 5, and then the others wherever they fell, but I'll move him up just because I've got Mayo. So I've got my Oriole, Mike. I got my token Oriole, but I was also, on Dingers, Ty and I talked a lot about the 2020 draft, and he loved Mayo's makeup from the get-go. And Ty is in this particular league. So in this and 2 other leagues, I intentionally drafted or got Mayo just to piss him off, because that is, again, it's always an important part of Dynasty Baseball, is just upsetting those that you know.
Of course,
so I did do that. So we'll see if this happens in 5 minutes or in 18 hours when I get to pick, because there's a sleep clock on this. But anyway, that's more exciting than talking about the Athletics.
Oh,
there you go. Agreed. Well, moving on to the Athletics, obviously a team that it's been rumored that they're going to Vegas, and that I've heard rumors that that's off the table now.
The mayor doesn't want them. That's what I heard. And then said, "I'm so sorry. I forgot about money."
Right. So obviously, we got flashes of Mason Miller last year. Zach Geloff obviously came up last year. And Soderstrom came up last year. Who's the top 3 for you guys in the athletic system? Robbie, we'll start with you.
I've still got Miller because he got hurt before he exceeded the limit. So he's the lone hope in that pitching system from an elite standpoint of a guy that we could really like. Otherwise I got Joe Boyle, starting pitcher, and Jacob Wilson. Now my bid on Joe Boyle, I feel like, I'm used car salesman on you for this one. He's a rotation piece with upside in Oakland, like JP Sears and Frankie Montas before him. Boyle's not hyped, but he's one guy that could pay off for Dynasty. The W's are going to be hard to come by, but if he gets some ground ball outs, he could become a quality starts type guy that could play, and points league specific. You're going to rank him higher than you would, other pitchers. He's also going to start this year, and those are 3 guys. Wilson's just like, he was the safe bet when he was picked. He's, for some reason, it's like he's the high floor guy. I hate that for a first round pick, that like he's safe and he's got a good floor. But in my dynasty drafts, he's slipped to the 30th spot in 3 different leagues so far. Or sorry, into the 30s, not just 30, but in the 30s in 3 leagues. And I feel that's because people are like, I don't want safe, I want ceiling. But this guy's going to be an MLBer. Nobody said he's going to hit 25 dingers. No one says he's going to steal 25 bases, but he could be a very good professional baseball player for the A's, wherever they are. Whether it be Oakland, Vegas, or Saskatchewan. And you would you would keep the name, as I said in my name down here, if you're watching on the YouTubes, move the A's to Canada and still call them the A's. You just spell it different. You figure it out, America.
I love it. Speaking of, before we get into, Ben, your big 3, I did want to ask you real quick for both of you guys, with a guy like Mason Miller, and I know they were watching his innings last year, and obviously he's got the plus fastball. For a team that's not going to be competitive next year, and I think we can all agree on that, and obviously his injury concerns from last year, how do they approach Mason Miller going into this season? Do they fully let him go, or is it kind of one of those things too where they kind of play it by ear? Does he start the year with and break camp with them? What are your all's thoughts on terms of, like, from a fantasy perspective, is Mason Miller somebody worth targeting?
They're talking that he's going to be their closer, which to me is I think he could be freaking elite as a closer. But to me, it's sad to see him going there already. If anyone watched the Arizona Fall League the year he was there. There were really good arms that year in the Arizona Fall League that have, turned out to be pretty solid, guys that are knocking on the door and they're looking pretty good. And Miller blew everyone away. He was just, nobody could touch him. And it stinks because you watch him and he's that guy that the stuff is there. He could be an elite starter. Boyle is, to me, is the guy who has the stuff, but struggles quite a bit to get it over the plate. But those two guys, I would love to see them get a chance to start for a team like this, because what the heck is it going to hurt you? But those two both profile as an elite closer if that's the road they go. But it's just, God, it seems early to move either one of them into that role.
Interesting.
With Miller specifically, it's the career innings cap, right? Since he's been a pro, 52 and 2/3 is what he had last year. That's the career high. And then it was, 14 and then 6 the year before. But obviously injuries, it's not that they're like, we're really going to hone you in 6 innings this year. But yeah, if they throw him in the pen, I would not want to hear the Garrett Crochet model, where we're going to try to work him into this or work him into that. Like, do the smart thing of let him have 4 starts and then give his body the adrenaline drop for 10 days, send him down, because you can manipulate the system in that way so that he misses a start and then he can come back and give you 4 more. I don't know. I've seen it with Aaron Sanchez with the Blue Jays, where he was one of those guys who could have been electric, and he had one very good season, and the year where he was like an ERA champ, and the year before that he was bullpen closery type, and the Jays fans were like, I don't know, man, he's going to be this excellent starter. And I was like, yeah. But like, we've already seen this backing it up 5 years with Brett Cecil, who won 13 or 14 games one year, and then 2 years later was very good out of the bullpen because that was the right move for him. You want him to be a starter. That's where the value is for you as the A's organization. And like, if you're moving to, let's just say Winnipeg, the Winnipeg fans are going to want him to be a starting pitcher and not a relief pitcher. So burn him to the ground as a starter, and then fallback is relief pitcher. And they don't have a good track record with this. I hate how much I know about the A's right now. James Caprillion, years and years, he fought bad health to get up and debut. Future Hall of Famer Brent Honeywell Jr. moved to Oakland, who is currently with Pittsburgh, and I can't wait till we get to them. Ben, eyes up, come on. I don't know why you guys are both putting your heads down.
I love Brent Honeywell.
Fought injuries.
Yeah, I love that.
Got to debut with them. And then last year, Muller was the guy. I was very excited for his potential, just like I am about Boyle. Exact same scenario with the underrated Mike Montas in spring training was all of a sudden throwing. I think it was the slider that he was throwing like 60. It was beautiful. And then it's like, holy crap, he's going to be their SP5, and he was very good. 2021, maybe it was 2020, whenever. Yeah. And that was the thing where I like max these guys out. Joe Boyle, same deal. Max them out, because it's not worth it when you have, as an organization, you've seen what has happened and how long these guys can fight the injuries. When they're healthy, pitch them, do make a plan. Ohtani with the Angels had a plan, and yes, he still blew his arm out twice, but that was because they weren't working within the realm of pitching normalcy. They were like, how fast do you throw? Oh, that's cool. That's going to sell shirts. Do that. But with Miller, they can take a different approach and be like, we're going to let you have 4 starts. We're going to cap you kind of 5 innings or whatever, 80 pitches to 100, 80 to 90 pitches the first 4 times. Then we're going to, just like a friggin' professional knows this better than I do, that you need to be able to do those things. Because even when he's down, he's still throwing. When he's not on the mound accumulating a pitch count, he's still doing things. I forget if it was Bauer or somebody who talked about the fact that on a start day, they'll throw somewhere around 300 pitches if they have a good start. And about, 80 of those are the in-game fastballs, but they're still going to be throwing 60 fastballs in warm-up and long toss. They're really going through it. And when they do bullpens, they just do half of that. So they're still going to throw 150 type arm movements. If we're talking about injury prevention, it's not there. Miller's either healthy or he isn't. Like, why waste him in the bullpen when you need starting pitchers?
Agreed.
And a guy that I'm reminded of. You started going down the Blue Jays.
Oh no, you're not going to go back to the trade, the big Marlins trade, are you?
No. But you started going down the Blue Jays, well, and a guy that I really liked as a prospect, but just never could fully show he was going to be able to stay healthy, was Jordan Romano. And that when he got close, they made the flip switch and they said, you know what, this guy just he's just not going to be a starter. And so immediately he was a
big,
reliever,
he throws hard, he went off in the Rule 5, he got traded from San Diego to Texas, and then Texas sent him back, and they were like, all right, we tried it, to the pen. And it was 2020. Sorry to interrupt. I remember watching a game in Buffalo because they went to Buffalo. They went to Buffalo to play that year because Canada said, no, thanks, COVID. We'll just have our own strain here. And they Romano moved into the bullpen, but you could see the film and you could watch him walking in the bullpen. I forget who they were playing. And he just looked like he was about to murder somebody in a Netflix series. Like, he looked so serious. And then I forget who the interview was with the veteran who's like, what's a guy in your bullpen who you think is really, exciting, intense, da-da-da. And he's like, when Jordan Romano gets up, I just shut up because that guy is not listening to me. He looks so serious. And then he goes out on the mound and like they talked about that killer instinct. Yeah. Yep. If that's Mason Miller, sure. But like, let's, let another injury happen before that.
But that's to me, like I guess if you want to say the best case scenario of the making the choice to go to a reliever is
5 inning closer.
And even then Romano, the 2019 season was hurt and put up something like a 7.50 ERA in I think it was 10 innings, but still, he kind of walked the ballpark. He did strike out 15 per 9, but he was getting hit hard. And then he just came back in that 2020 season. And like you said, there was a switch flipped on the mound for him because you can't be that stinking intense for 6 innings. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, that's true.
And so he was able to flip that switch and go, okay, so now this is how I'm supposed to pitch when I'm a reliever. And it's obviously worked very well for him ever since. So
Ben, let's dive into your top three with Oakland. Yeah.
So I have 0 of the guys that Robbie just mentioned.
Ooh.
I always like that. All right. So one guy that we talked about here a couple weeks ago when Ben Badler was on the show with us, Luis Morales, was the top money guy in 2023 as far as a pitcher is concerned. He got all the way up to high A last year. Yeah, he's coming out of Cuba, so he is he's a little older than the average guy that gets signed. Got all the way.
But he was 20. He was 20 as an older guy. So no one's thinking a 17-year-old. He was 20. He'll play this year 21.
Yeah, but I mean, just the fastball, curveball, slider together are a freaking amazing combination. It's that, like you said, the fastball variant. We were talking about this earlier. If he had, his change isn't bad. It's just he doesn't seem to know how to. He doesn't have a good idea of how to sequence it in, and and once again, we've seen all of 44 innings as a pro so far. So there's a lot there. We can still see growth, but holy crap, is that a fun fastball to watch? And he's 6'3", and I think he's listed in the upper 100s, so 190, 195. But he looks like a guy who has arms and legs of a 6'6" guy. It's all arms and legs coming at you, but it's consistent in the delivery. It's going to be fun to watch. But with any international guy, there's a lot of risk there. So, you got to look at that. The second guy I got on here is Darrell Hernandez. Am I completely butchering that name for everybody? The guy
you're asking me.
Well, I guess the reason I'm asking is I actually have an Orioles fan here who may know Hernandez a little bit before he was traded over for Cole Irvin, which to me I think is going to end up looking like a really bad deal for Baltimore.
Yeah.
Although, Cole Irvin. he was acquired to be kind of what he gave them, but then he just didn't do it very much last year. He was hurt so much.
I never really understood the trade to begin with, but in terms of the I don't know how you say his name, Hernandez or Hernandez.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Let's figure it out. Let's pick it. It's Harnaiz. Do you want to just go Harnaiz? Let's just pick one, and then we'll all say it differently.
Hernandez. I'm gonna go with Hernandez.
Hernandez, yeah. I think the nays is good. We'll add an E at the end. Yeah. But for anyone out there who's Googling right now, Harnaiz, if you didn't know already, 2019 fifth rounder, finished last year at AA. Yeah. And excellent average, excellent OBP last year.
He's a guy who, so this is a guy, if you were an early 90s baseball nut, you know who Bobby Crosby is. And he was a rookie of the year for the A's. Very good, but one of those guys who shone bright and shone fast and faded off in a darn hurry. He reminds me a lot on the field of what Bobby Crosby did. I don't know that he's going to walk you a ton, but he makes really good contact. He's probably not going to hit 20, but he's going to give you double digits. He might steal, 10, 15, 20. He doesn't have a great arm, but he's always in the perfect position to make it work. And so, just those little things that you're like, okay, I could see this guy working in Oakland for a year or 2 or 3. And so he's kind of that guy. He's got all the base skills you want to see. And so that's him. And then my last one is Denzel Clark, who, if the guy could make solid contact, might be the best prospect in baseball. This is a legit plus power and double plus speed who can just go and frickin' get it out in center field. But I think he might have about as much chance to hit 220 as he does to hit 260, which is not exactly a profile you want to have. And that's only if the hit tool actually gets him to the majors, because it very well might be so bad he never gets there. So those are my 3.
What famous shortstop did Bobby Crosby replace?
Wasn't it Walt Weiss? Or was it Mike Bordick?
No,
or
sorry.
Was it
Bobby Crosby? Who did he replace? So there was a guy who played shortstop before he got to Oakland. Who did he replace?
Was it Ricky Henderson?
Nope.
No.
I don't
know.
No. I'm just trying to think of who would have
been shortstop Athletics.
Oh, was he Tejada's replacement?
Ding, ding, ding. You got it.
Her guy.
Yeah.
And I, for some reason, I had Bobby Crosby as a lot older than that.
Well, that's what I'm trying to think. When did Bobby Crosby come in?
He
2004.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
Early 2000s. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where I was going with, Bordick and with Weiss, but I think I remember him with Long Beach State, and because he was a hell of a college player. And at that time, Long Beach was just kicking out future shortstops for a while, and he was one of them. But anyway, so those are my 3. So Morales, Hernandez, and Clark.
Okay. On my next 3, I've got Morales and Harnaiz. Is how I'm going to pronounce it. So as I mentioned before, excellent average in OBP in AA, AAA last year. But I gotta say, guys, I think he's empty average. I think he's one of those guys that you like, but for fantasy, he's just never going to be the guy. Ramon Urias is a Baltimore Oriole that you might remind you a little bit of him, and he could be in the exact same scenario as, you're good, you can play around a little bit. And we've got highly touted prospects that are going to take your job at short, and then at second, and then finally at third. And that might be what happens, to Harnaiz. But 13 steals last year, caught 5 times, single-digit home runs, second base type profile. If you've got a highly touted guy that can push him off, that's where I am on him. The other guy I've got, and I think this is a forgotten soldier, Tyler Soderstrom. Did we forget? He only had 125 at bats, fellas.
Yeah,
but he's
still there.
I think he actually had too many days in the majors.
Yeah, but not because fantasy. I'm using fantasy rules to keep
I
him
just
in
saying he's on Baseball Reference. It says he exceeded rookie limits this last year, so
Yeah,
that's why.
yeah. So
I didn't
I'm
have
going
him.
with Dynasty Startup then, or Dynasty League, where it's one. It's, you got to have 130 to be out, and then it's like who was it? Ray close or whatever pitcher for the Cardinals who was constantly hurt. Reyes. What was his first name?
Oh, Alex Reyes.
Alex Reyes. Yeah.
Alex Reyes.
Yeah.
Was that asshole was at 50 innings for like 2 years. Just desperately needed to get him off prospect list, but he was hurt. And then everyone's like, he's gone anyway. But Soderstrom, for my purposes here last year, guys, he didn't exceed the rookie limit. So in most of your leagues, he'll still be on a first contract or however you sort it out that way. But he had 431 at bats last year, 24 dingers between AAA and the show. Whatever, the rest of it wasn't ideal, like a 230-ish average. I think when I'm averaging out the two here, the OBP was under 300, but he's 21 years old. Like I talked about with Kyron Paris, this is somebody who was, up and over his head and put up into this situation. There's a future major leaguer here. Oakland should just let him play. And for my purposes, I've got him as next 3 because he currently is with the club, but I don't think it's going to go well initially. I've seen some weird stuff with the A's in the last few years. They had Dermis Garcia, who was like a first, third base guy who's now with Washington, previously with the Yankees. Big power guy, big strikeout numbers. They didn't fix him. They ended up letting him go. They had Dalton Kelly the last year. I thought Dalton Kelly, former Rays farmhand, was going to be able to take first base, possibly DH. He didn't get a single at bat with the team. And the other guy was shortstop, who's now with the Yankees, Kevin Smith, former Blue Jay farmhand, who was excellent in AAA, teammate of Soderstrom's. And then Smith was up and down twice before Soderstrom got his first call, and they weren't able to make it. So I'm not sure in Nashville with the AAA team what they're doing with the guys as far as adjustments or things like that, but they don't seem to have a great graduating system at this time. And I don't want to pin it off on the players, because each of those 3 guys, Soderstrom included, the 4 guys that I mentioned, I thought they all had skills, and I'm expecting the AAA coaches to be playing them, but also teaching them. And I didn't feel like that was happening last year with some of the A's that I saw come up. They just came up. Whatever they had, they had. And once upon a time, they had Matt Olson come up and hit 18 dingers? Or no, maybe it was Chapman that came up and hit 18 dingers at the end of the season, and Olson came up and did something similar either the same year or the year after. And since then, it's not like we expect that every year, but we haven't seen that like big guy that just exploded on the scene. And I don't know, but I think Soderstrom's going to be a slow burn guy, 2020 first round pick, and people are already kind of like sailing him. He'll play this year at 22. Come on.
I'm surprised he's on your list being a catcher, Robbie.
Catcher first base. Catcher first base.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ben, how about you? Who's your next? Are we already talked? We did your big 3, next big 3, did we?
Not the next one.
Not his next.
No,
next week.
no.
Sorry. Okay.
No. So I have Jacob Wilson, and we've talked a little bit about him. If he ends up being what Jack Wilson was, is that such a bad thing? I mean, that's an elite defender that was an all-star for a year. I mean, ended up being his time with Pittsburgh, he was a 270 hitter. I mean, I really don't think that's crazy. He just wasn't he never gave you anything in power or speed.
I was going to say light stick.
The defense was always elite.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so then my next guy is, I'm gonna friggin' butcher this one. It'll be fun.
Oh, I'm excited
Oh,
now.
boy.
I'm excited now.
New Jersey prep high school pitcher from Mike Trout's high school, Steven Echevarria. I'm gonna try that and say that. Yeah.
Echevarria, we're good.
Yeah,
you got it in the ballpark.
Yeah. So I think, honestly, he ended up not making a lot of these lists very high simply because he didn't throw a professional inning. But this is a guy who got paid like a back end of the first rounder. They paid him $3 million in the third because they had done some things earlier in the draft to where they could. And he even said he was going to pull his name out of the draft because he didn't think he was going to be a first rounder and wanted first round money in order to not go to Florida. And so he was about to pull himself out of the draft the last week ahead of it and ended up just like, I'll give it a shot. This is one of, I think he was the youngest pitcher, high school pitcher in the draft, and like one of the 5 youngest guys that got drafted this year. And so a lot of room to work with him, but already touches 97. Has a really fun slider that it has really sharp break. I think he's a guy to watch in this system. Not that I think they develop pitching well or anything like that, but it's the talent is there. And then my third one, I'm going for I think this guy's it's a Ben Special high floor pitcher, and that's Jack Perkins, who another guy who I think he's a 4-pitch guy, manipulates his fastball and his slider to the point where he probably pitches with more like 7 different looks out of the hand, and just none of them are a plus. All of them are at least average, and he has really good control of it. I mean, the arm strike, the way he throws reminds me a lot of Tommy Hansen back in the day, that short delivery where you're almost like shot putting it, but it's consistent. Every time the arm's there, it's consistent. I think, I watch him and I'm like, this is a guy that I could see making a major league team. And then he went to the Arizona Fall League. He didn't allow a run in 12 innings down there. So, I mean, granted, this wasn't the best year as far as hitting talent down in Arizona, but to go 12 innings without allowing a run in that type of environment is pretty solid. So just a guy I think like.
Sorry, but just to your point on the Fall League, they do always have the asterisks of there's something that's bad at the Fall League. And then that's supposed to explain why someone did something that nobody thought, that they would do. So the hitting is weak, so the pitchers are good, but they're not really good. Or the hitters are good, whatever. Or so-and-so was supposed to play more and they didn't, and this and that happened. But like when you really break it down, these are guys who each organization thinks have very good skills. Maybe they don't have complete skills, or they really like them and they were hurt and needed more time. So I just very quickly looked Perkins up because I'm unfamiliar with the name, which makes sense because he's rostered in 0% of Fantrax leagues.
Oh yeah.
And I'm looking at 6 dynasty leagues right now. He's not on the list. So I love a guy like that because that means he goes on my follow list and I use a pen and paper to write his name down, and I'll check him out in May and I'll see what things are looking like. And, as draft season, 4 and 5 months when it starts up for some of my leagues, I'll start to be looking at a guy like this. And if he hasn't gotten too good, that means he could be stolen. And then by the end of the year, people will be like, that Perkins guy, who rosters him? Oh, that a-hole Rob.
Well, and one thing to keep a note on is he did, he got up to Double-A last year, had rough time up there, but then all of his time in Arizona was out of the bullpen, and he actually finished 4 games. So, I guess I don't know how well. I would have to go back and find the games just to kind of see how much his stuff maybe played up in the short stints like that. But like I said, you're talking a guy if he's normally a 55 fastball and 55 slider and 50 curve, and he's allowed to just air it out, that could be a guy that bumps up to plus and maybe can be something in the bullpen. So
right, and that's the first time in his pro career he was coming out of the bullpen too. As I'm just looking now at the 40-something starts he has as a pro, the first 4 times out of the pen were by far the most successful pro innings he's pitched. So I was counting as NCAA, so beyond college. Jeez.
One guy I want to bring up, and I'm just on Baseball Prospectus, and I want to bring this name up simply because there's a funny story behind this. I don't know if you guys play on Yahoo leagues, but he's ranked number 2 according to Baseball Prospectus is Max Muncy, the shortstop. If you played Yahoo, they literally took, I don't know if they fixed it or not, but it literally looks
the
like
wrong.
Right. They used their
They're all
their
nuts.
Max Muncy of the Dodgers, and it's almost like they copied and pasted it and threw an Oakland A's hat on top of them. So everyone's
I
like,
could
"What?
see that as a
Who
joke.
yeah, who the
You
hell
know.
is this?" But what are your all's thoughts on Max Muncy being? Is that, at least according to them, baseballprospectus.com, they have him as the number 2 prospect behind Denzel Clark.
I think there's a lot of the same questions. I mean, you want to get into, and this is something BP does a lot. Clark is a guy, like I said, plus power, double plus speed. Not sure if he can hit. Muncy is the guy who above average power, above average speed. Not sure where his hit tool is going to land. He's more of a right. I mean, he's striking out 30% of the time. He actually, oddly enough, looks a lot like the guy on the Dodgers in his performance so far. But yeah, I'm not sold on him as a shortstop. And from there, I'm just not sure if it's enough power to factor elsewhere. But wouldn't it be ironic if about the time that the major league version is getting ready to retire, the Dodgers come along and trade for this version and turn him into a similar thing?
That would be great. The fans would love it.
Oh my! Well, actually, that's
him. That's
him. Yeah,
that's the same one that Baseball Reference has. Because I quickly looked when
Yeah.
you said the pitcher. I'm like, let's find a real picture of him. But yeah, I mean, they certainly could. They could be father son here. You know. But yeah, so for me on Muncy, it's just one of those. He's got A and AA. He was up early. The numbers look okay, but what he's supposed to do, which you alluded to, Ben, of the speed power, were two things that he wasn't elite at last year, but he was better at average in AA, and he's still young. So I know some people out there love to say the power is the last thing to develop, except for those who it isn't. So there could be a lot more for Muncy. So he's an interesting guy, but I've been trying really hard to get fantasy people to not forget about pitchers for years and years, because a lot of people who have popular lists really like to go heavy on the hitters and very light on the pitchers. But every single, fantasy league seems to have an equal weight to hitting and pitching categories, which means you need to have plenty of both. So, and I alluded earlier that I've got one league where I've got really good pitching on the MLB side and on my minor side, because I feel like that's a great league for people to come to me for pitchers when I need to go, or I can go to them when I need a hitter of some sort. And that's a way that I've had some success in that league. I think it's been up 4 years. I've just missed playoffs 2 years and won a division in one of the others. And it was a 30-team league. It's now down to 24, but it's highly competitive. And that strategy, I think, plays out. So sometimes I leave a Max Muncy on the ground, but I try to pick up some of those, single A to double A pitchers instead, because I like the idea of their progression helping me more than a Muncy, who could always just be, unfortunately in Dynasty, substituted for a wily veteran if he doesn't break out. And of course, if he breaks out, well, then you just missed on him, right? But you don't typically miss on a lot of those guys because it's real hard to hit a baseball.
And
right.
you tend to see it pretty quick. You tend to see a guy that's going to have it or not have it as far as contact pretty quick. That's why, if nothing else, last year you referenced his AA time, it got you excited. And then he went down. He's one who went to the Arizona Fall League and looks lost. Yeah. And so but what I will say that impressed me there, and because he stayed on the leaderboard for most of the year or most of the Fall League for this, the guy stole 8 bases without getting caught. Now, I don't know that he's an elite base stealer or if he just picked out his times. I don't know that he's got that kind of speed, but it showed up pretty darn well for him. And so that's something you have to at least pay attention to when you get onto a case like that. Now, granted, there's the other thing to always take into account here. Catchers in the Arizona Fall League are getting screwed over. So, because they're trying to catch people. And
for the first time in most cases.
Yeah. And so, I mean, so then they're trying to do that and also pay attention to base runners. And there's a lot of stolen bases down in the AFL for that reason. But regardless, going 8 for 8 is something to note in only 22 games. That's a pretty solid rate. So anyway,
there we go.
Well, guys, it's been fun. I know Oakland and Kansas City aren't the greatest teams to talk prospects, but you guys know your stuff, and always really, really impressed when I listen to you guys talk about some of these guys, and it also helps me out too. So for those of you guys who are listening to us live or checking us out later on the podcast platforms, these are guys to kind of bookmark. If you don't play in a dynasty league, if you obviously play in a dynasty league, check these guys out. But we had a lot of fun, guys. Who is next on our prospects power hour? Who are the 3 teams that we're looking at?
I should have that prepared. I don't often.
Don't worry.
It'll be quickly.
Don't worry. I've got it. I just accidentally.
Okay.
Who's first?
Not muted. Oh no. The wrong one popped up. Pornhub down. No, I just turned the screen off. And now I got to turn it back on. It's going to pop
up. All right.
So.
So I've got it up here. It's Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and San Diego. Which
I'm looking forward to that one.
I mean, Milwaukee is a really, really fun system, and then
San Diego too.
Fun. Philly's more fun. This one's going to be good because there's with Philly. It's we'll get into it. With Philly, there's a lot of like, where do you want to go with your big, and where do you want to go with your next? Because there's options. With Milwaukee, they're going to trade them anyway, right? They're going to trade them all. Yeah. They'll extend them before they have an at bat, or they'll trade them when they're good.
And because Robbie loves this, right now this is the number 1 and the number 2 catcher on MLB Pipeline's prospect catchers.
Ethan Salas
and Jefferson Quero. So
there's another catcher in the San Diego system that I also like, and I might have to bring him up with my next 3.
We're going to talk
about
catchers?
I might. Okay. I hate it. Good spot to end it on catcher talk.
There you go. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. For everybody that jumped on and watched throughout the show, or even just hung out with us for a little bit. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to the Palazzo Podcast YouTube channel. Make sure you like this video. Give us a 5-star review. You guys know the deal. We got the Discord rolling for those of you guys getting ready for drafts. Maybe you are already in kind of your research mode. Check us out in there. Discord will be in the description. If you guys have questions, check us out on Twitter as well. I'm at _MikeVA. Big Gentle Ben, Robbie is at Robbie Baseball, numerical 1. I learned from the previous podcast. So thank you all for checking us out. Really appreciate it. And we'll be doing a big show later this week too. Myself, Michael Govier, and Britton Allen will be back, hopefully. So check us out there too. Yeah. For myself, Ben, and Robbie, thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate it. And make sure you check us out next week, too, for the Phillies, Brewers, and Padres next Prospects Power Hour. All right. Thank you all very much. Peace.